Do you sometimes get overwhelmed by the amount of info on a GMAT Quant problem? Hi, I'm Mark Glenn, the GMAT mentor, here to make the GMAT make sense. And so this happens quite frequently with my students, and a great way to overcome this can be using a table. It helps organize all the information into a simple, easy to grasp diagram. And so let's take a look at an example. This problem here has a lot of info, a lot going on. I'll simplify it a little bit by putting it into the core components, but it's still kind of hard to know where to start here. And so we do see that we have two products, P and Q. We have 2 weeks, last week and this week. When you have that 2x2 kind of setup, it's a great clue that using a table is going to help you. So let's go ahead and set up that table. Okay, now we have the table set up. Let's just fill in our data. So we know that last week's P was 10% of the total. Let's just call that 10% of T. And then let's call our total for last week T. That leaves 90% of T for our Q. And then since we know last week and this week's Q is equal, we can say that this week's Q is also 90% of T. Our total is 9,000. And our total P was 20% of that 9,000, which is just 1,800. And now we can just continue by filling in the rest of the table until we get to our answer. So we have our 1,800 plus something equals 9,000 on the bottom. That leaves 7,200 for the total Q. Each Q last week and this week is equal, so we know that we can just cut 7,200 in half, giving us 3,600 for each of last week and this week for Q. We know that we have a 9-to-1 ratio, Q to P, in that last week, so we can just divide that 3,600 by 9, giving us 400 for last week's P. And then 400 plus something equals 1,800 in that left column, meaning that this week's P must be 1,400. Finally, look back at the question. How many more units of P this week than last week? 1,400 minus 400 is just 1,000, which means our answer is C. So this is, again, a great way to organize things and work through the problem without having to do a lot of algebra and potentially getting lost. Notice also that we did not ever solve for T. That's fine. It's just a placeholder here. Always look for the quickest ways to solve, even if that means you don't work everything out. So hopefully that helped the GMAT make sense.